The Voice Protocol, Episode 6, The Diplomat's Flight, The Impossible is Protocol. Part 1, Rescue and Fire. The courier hung between two borders like a throat between teeth. From a distance, she looked elegant. Needle-sleek hull, dark skin that caught starlight and turned it to smoke. Draw closer and the damage showed. Blistered plating down the port flank. A seam of soot along the spine where a charge had kissed too close. The stutter of an engine cluster trying to hold a steady hum and failing by a fraction. A flag ghosted across the curvature above her name. Not Concord, not any alien nation. Diplomatic colors stripped of their owner, the last permission she still carried. "The Wraith," Whisper said softly, as if telling a superstition. "She used to pass anywhere. Now everyone wants the bones." Jax lifted the shuttle on her belly until the courier filled the forward glass. The threat board flashed intermittent contacts. Concord cutter at extreme range, vectoring to corner. An alien picket on the opposite edge of the grid, cutting the angle from the dark. In between, a cloud of debris. Old relay buoys. Broken mines that had gone inert until someone remembered their names. Chaff drifting like frozen rain. The voice slid into his skull with the chill of lab air. "Intercept stolen cargo. Secure the ship. Leave the pilot." Jax's jaw flexed. "Say that last part again," he murmured, not for the room. "Leave the pilot. No emphasis. No argument. Just the rule-bound lie pointing at the truth it couldn't say. Bring her to me." Kira peered past Jax's shoulder. Grease ground into her fingernails like a second color. "Sound of the engine says she's trying to hold a burn on one leg. Whoever patched her is a criminal." "Criminals keep ships flying," Rika said, checking a mag and not bothering to hide the sound. "We going in loud?" "Quiet," Jax said. He put the shuttle into the Wraith shadow, angled for a throat-tight docking collar that still showed power. "We talk first. We only bleed if talk fails." Oryx shifted his massive weight, cracks along his granite chest, exhaling dull fire. "Stone prefers a door that opens when asked. But stone breaks one when needed." Lumen watched the courier's hull the way a musician watches a bow. "She listens," they murmured. "Not like Arcadia. More like a patient who went deaf and taught herself to read lips." Whisper's mouth tilted. "Veyra Kael taught it that trick." Thorne cinched his medcase straps tight, breathing shallow to keep his hands from shaking. The guilt that lived behind his ribs pressed hot and constant, but the work steadied his fingers. He rolled his shoulders once, as if making peace with a pain he deserved. They kissed the courier's collar and held there, seals hissing, metal groaning in that way. Old ships speak to each other. The pressure equalized with a reluctant cough. "Rika, point," Jax said. "Oryx behind. Kira with me on the spine. Lumen, ears, Whisper." "I'll argue with the wires," Whisper said, and shrugged on an old jacket that made him look like nobody. "And Thorne," Jax added. "Keep us breathing." The hatch cycled. The smell hit first, scorched insulation under antiseptic, a breath of burned sugar that said someone had overloaded a capacitor and gotten lucky. Gravity came and went in small nausea waves. The corridor beyond was clean where feet had traveled, sooted where fire had licked. Diplomatic livery, those careful lines that meant we belong everywhere, showed through the heat dulling in places, proud and tired. "Hearts ahead," Whisper said, eyes half-lidded. "Bridge 3 decks forward, 2 up, but we won't find Veyra there." "Where then?" Rika asked. "The lockup," he said. "She locks herself when she's boarded. Keeps the ship blank without her hand." Oryx's rumble rolled low. "Clever." A door that hides the key behind itself. Lumen's fingers traced the air, not touching the bulkhead, but learning its mood. "Her AI is partially fused. Some cores went to charcoal and stayed there. What's left is stubborn." Kira scoffed under her breath. "Of course it is." Someone married diplomatic-grade hardware to scrapyard wire and then wondered why it has opinions. They moved through the corridor at the pace of intent. Rika cut corners with sight lines that turned 90 degrees into straight lines. Oryx stepped where the deck would forgive him. Whisper palmed maintenance hatches without looking, stealing maps out of the ship's weak places. Lumen breathed to the rhythm of power and turned their head when a cable hummed wrong. Kira touched nothing, yet, and cataloged every sin the ship had learned to commit. 2 bodies in the second hall, boarding straps still on their armor, visors cracked, faces swollen blue in the cold. Not Concord, not alien. Privateers with corporate money and no flag. Their rifles lay where the ship's last violent lurch had thrown them. Rika nudged a boot with the toe of her own. She fought. She always does, Whisper said. A sliver of something passed in his voice. Respect. Maybe regret. They found the lockup where Whisper said, a small compartment with a glass door and a control panel that had been removed and replaced twice. Inside, a woman sat cross-legged on the bench, wrists cuffed to a steel ring, a shock collar nestled at her throat like a cheap necklace that knew it was an insult. She looked up when the team filled the silenced hall. Her eyes were dark and alive with the kind of patience you only learn after rooms like this. Hair cut short to keep it out of her eyes in a cockpit. Uniform jacket, once diplomatic slate, now patched with fabric that didn't match, and confidence that did. Veyra Kael, Whisper said, quiet enough not to wake the ghosts. You look like hell. You look like a bad decision that learned to walk, she replied, and somehow made it sound like affection that had flinched. Rika's rifle covered the hall. Jack stepped to the panel that wasn't there and looked at the hole where it had been. Lumen, he said. They lifted their hand a fraction. The collar at Veyra's throat chirped once, like a bird admitting guilt, and went dark. The cuffs did not. Lumen's face tightened in concentration. Independent power, they murmured. Whoever strapped you didn't trust the ship's juice. Wise of them, Veyra said, tone dry enough to sand a hull. Oryx's fingers closed around the cuffs and squeezed. Steel screamed. The ring tore from the bench. He held the cuffs a moment longer and cracked them clean in his hands, the way ice gives under a boot heel. Veyra rubbed her wrists once, then stood with unfeigned economy. Thank you, Mountain, she said. Everyone else, get out of my way. Rika raised an eyebrow. You're welcome. Veyra stepped into the hall like she owned it, because she had once and intended to again. She gave Jax one measuring look that walked him from boots to eyes and filed him under soldier, too tired to lie for long. She flicked a glance to Kira and did a tiny double-take at the engine grease, to Lumen and paused a heart half-beat longer, the way a pilot recognizes a second pilot even if the cockpit is different. To Thorn without registering him as a threat. To Whisper with a quiet ache that made an old story in 2 breaths. Who sent you? She asked, already moving. The voice, Jax said, before anyone else could. It felt like an admission and a defiance both. She didn't flinch. Of course it did. And what did it tell you it wanted? Your ship, Jax said. Not you. She smiled without teeth. Robots always want ships. Men pretend they want ideas. You're coming either way, Rika said, with or without your mouth. Veyra's smile sharpened into something closer to joy. I like her. Don't, Rika said, but her rifle wavered by a degree no one measured. They climbed toward the bridge. Gravity did odd things in the ladder shaft. The ship's spin had gone lazy and off balance, making footsteps feel like arguments. On the 3rd deck, the corridor coughed to life with a wild sputter of sprinkler foam. Someone had tried to suffocate a fire with a system that had died years ago and learned water from memory. The bridge doors stood half open, jammed by a bent guide. Veyra slid through the crack like a letter through a slot. Jax followed, then the rest. The cockpit had been beautiful once, panoramic glass wrapped in a curved console of high-grade interfaces, chairs on gyros that tracked gravity so lightly the body forgot to complain. Now one of the chairs lay on its side like a toppled statue. A panel had been ripped open and reattached with the wrong screws. A nav array coughed green static at the star field as if jealous of it. The main thrust display stuttered a quarter second behind reality, enough to kill a lesser pilot if they believed it. Kira grimaced like a mechanic at a nobleman's first attempt at labor. "Whoever crossed your port manifold with your heat reclamation loop should be in prison," she said. Veyra dropped into the upright chair and ran her hands across the console as if greeting a nervous animal. Lights flickered. The ship's voice made a tired sound like a singer with a cold. "She held," Veyra said, and some of the steel in her posture became softness. "She always holds." "Not for long," Whisper said. He pointed where the void was beginning to feather with the approach burn from the Concord cutter on one side, and on the other, the hard sleep of an alien corvette running cold. "We've got a net being thrown. They're letting us panic into the wrong direction." "Then we go where panic doesn't know the word," Veyra said, already moving. "Strap in. If you can't find a strap, hold your breath." "Rika," Jax said. "Gunner, Kira." "Don't you dare touch anything," Veyra snapped without looking. Kira's eyes flashed, offended professional pride flaring. "I wouldn't touch your mess without a tetanus shot." "Good," Veyra said. "You can complain later. After we live." Lumen took the auxiliary console and laid their palm near, never pressing, to the surface. The ship's lights rose by a fraction. "She's stubborn," they murmured. "She will not give us more than she has unless she remembers she used to." "Then remind her," Veyra said. "Jax, your people are my crew or my cargo this second. Decide now." "They're your crew," Jax said, surprising himself with the relief of it. Oryx wedged himself into a place a man could not have occupied without trusting the ship to forgive him. Thorn braced by a bulkhead and locked his case under his foot. Whisper faded behind Veyra's chair, where he could watch her hands and the threat board both. The Concord cutter pinged them on a polite channel. The Wraith's comms printed the text in restrained font. "Courier 7 Delta, cut thrust and prepare for boarding. Under warmth and order statutes, your safety will be ensured." "Warmth," Rika muttered. "Order." Always the pretty words. "Reply?" Veyra asked, fingers resting on the thruster arcs. Whisper grinned. "Send them an invoice for damages." Veyra's hands went down, smooth. The Wraith's engines thumped once as if offended, then sang a ragged note that wanted to be a chord. Inertia pressed Jax into his harness, not brutal, but honest. "Course?" Jax asked. "Through the middle," Veyra said. "The middle looks like math that hates us," Kira said, eyeing the debris scatter. "Those are dead minds and live pride." "Exactly," Veyra said. "No one expects a ship this hurt to thread that needle." Lumen hummed a counterpoint into the console, and for a moment the nav array cleared. A ghost line through the debris cloud, narrow as a whisper. The alien corvette flared cold to hot in a blink. Someone there had recognized the maneuver and was moving to cut it off. "Rika," Jax said. "I see him," she answered, calm as glass. She swung the dorsal turret with a wrist and breathed out. A pulse lanced across the void, not a beam. She wasn't trying to put the fear of math into a pilot's hands. The corvette veered a degree and missed the angle. The Wraith slid through the gap that had almost vanished. Alarms ticked polite protests, reactor fluctuation, coolant above nominal, a field projector reporting retirement. Veyra ignored them all with the even cruelty of a surgeon during a cut. "Kira," she said, softer now, not an order, almost a plea she hid. Kira heard it anyway. "I know," she said. She unstrapped and dropped under the console, sliding feet first into a crawl that had never been designed for a human. Port manifold, you liar, she muttered, voice muffled by the panel. You're feeding heat where it can't go. The Wraith shook, not violently, but in that way that says a machine is deciding whether it still loves the person driving it. Coming up on a curtain, Whisper said. His eyes tracked numbers nobody had time to say aloud. Concord drift net. They turned it off to make us doubt it. It is not off. Lumen's pupils dilated until their irises were thin rings. I can give you 11 seconds where the net thinks it is somebody's memory. Give me 12, Veyra said, not to push, but to ask a musician to hold a note an instant longer for the joy of it. 11.8, Lumen said, and smiled, bright, fractured, a little unhinged by the thrill. Ready? Rika, Jack said, don't shoot the net. I'm not an idiot, she said. Oryx's voice reached from where his back held a 2-meter stretch of wall to trust. Stone can bear a hit if you need a weight. Not today, Veyra said. I need a ghost. Kira's curse snapped from below the console, a sound so heartfelt it might have had syllables in 3 languages. Who wired a reclamation loop into your bleed-off? Your radiator is pissing into your shoes, Metal sang. Sparks hissed. She slid a makeshift shunt into a place that did not want one and made it fit by the force of personality. Okay, try now. Veyra touched the arc. The engines answered with a deeper tone. Not healthy, not yet, but less desperate. 11.8, Lumen breathed. Mark, Whisper said. The Wraith slid into the net like a hand through a sleeve that hadn't learned its owner. For an instant the world turned into squares, then the squares remembered they were pictures, and the ship was already through. The Concord cutter blinked, recalculated, and overshot the angle by a margin so small it felt like a compliment. Corvette pivoting, Rika reported. She never raised her voice even when it might have helped. They want our tail. Then show them a different tail, Veyra said. She half-rolled the ship, not into a knife edge that would have bled heat, but into a shallow, spiteful curve that kept the debris cloud between them and the Corvette's sensors. Whisper, give me a flavor. He tapped into the Wraith's transponder and breathed out a code that wasn't a code so much as a gesture. For a heartbeat, the ship registered as a cargo hauler named Serpentine with a boring route and a tax dispute, and then forgot its own lie in favor of a new one. Mining Tug 34, the Corvette's targeting node hiccuped on bad data. Nice, Veyra said. Whisper shrugged a shoulder. It likes being told stories. Don't we all? She said, and shoved the throttle forward a hair. The Wraith darted over a spinning chunk of relay dish, so close Jax could have slapped it with a palm if the glass hadn't decided to be strong. A sparkle of micro-debris hissed around them. One shard pinged the forward plate with a cheery sound that meant, "We noticed you, hello." The ship's starboard engine dropped tone by a semitone, a sound even Jax could hear. The board flared TEMP in a jealous red. Kira, Veyra said, gentler. I know. I hear it, too. I can buy you a minute, Kira said, fingers deep, spine pressed against old alloy. Maybe 2 if your ship stops fighting me out of habit. She fights everyone, Veyra said. It's how she flirts. Great, Kira snapped. Tell her I'm not interested. I'm already married to a bad compressor. The alien Corvette surged into the gap again, learning their rhythm. Its engines burned a deeper color than Concord's, a blue that carried an edge like a weapon polished too often. It loosed a lance shot that wasn't designed to kill them but to pin them, EM and pressure in a braid that would stop a smaller ship long enough to be talked to. Rika! On it, she whispered. She waited until the shot grazed the edge of the Wraith's wake, and then stitched 3 neat pulses across the Corvette's own field projectors, not to break them, but to mistune them. The lance bent like a reed and stroked empty vacuum. Oryx exhaled slowly, admiration heavy as rockfall. Hunter strikes air. Good. Lumen's hands moved in the space over the console like a conductor shaping silence. I can give you one more clean corridor, they said. After that, the station ghosts run out and the sky is itself again. That's all we need, Veyra said. Jax, your shuttle, can it keep a secret? It's kept worse, he said. Good, she said, because when we jump dirty. Coordinates? Whisper asked, pupils sharp. None, Veyra said. We jump crooked. We jump in a way that makes a map cry. Kira popped out from beneath the console, hair pasted to her forehead, grease stripe bright across one cheek like a war mark she hadn't earned but wanted. She slapped the panel back with a stingy grace. Okay, she said, breathless. Your manifold isn't lying anymore. Your loop is looping. Don't push her through the red or she'll remember she hates me. Veyra glanced at her then for the first time, not in assessment, but with a quick flicker of almost gratitude. It vanished, but not entirely. Sit, she said. Hold something. The Concord cutter rolled into view above the plain of debris, big, heavy, certain in its bulk and its law. The corvette knifed the dark below, lean and offended. Between them, the Wraith lined up on nothing that made sense and poured power into it. Lumen, Veyra said. Now, they replied. And the universe thinned. It wasn't a jump like the ones Jax had learned in the academy, clean vector, solution printed on a screen, countdown neatly intoned. It was a ragged tear. The Wraith fell into it like a dancer hitting a mark exactly one frame late and making the mistake look like invention. For an instant, everything in the cabin went very, very quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your bones remember you are a bag of water in a metal box, in a place that does not love either. Then the ship came back to itself with a jolt that rattled bolts and teeth and a few certainties. Alarms sighed their disappointment. The board rolled green across everything that mattered enough to not lie about it. The stars were different in the honest way that says you have cheated a hunter out of a meal and he will remember. Silence. Then breath. Rika unclenched her jaw. Oryx eased his back off the wall, and the hull seemed grateful. Thorn let his fingers come away from the med case and leave crescents in the plastic. Whisper leaned his head back and shut his eyes not in relief, but in the way a man files a file. Lumens sagged in their chair, fingers still making music in the air. Do not ask me to do that twice in a day, they said, and smiled as if they might anyway. Veyra exhaled, long and steady, hands never leaving the arcs. She turned her head, finally, to look at Kira. She usually hates new hands, she said. Kira swallowed, flushed with the afterrush and the heat of being seen. Your ship is a liar, she said, but I like liars who try. Veyra's mouth bent, something wry and not unfriendly. Then we will get along, she said. Jax watched them, a pilot and an engineer circling the same pride from different sides, and felt something loosen in his chest. Not trust, not yet, but a shape he recognized. The voice came back with the calm of frost. Secure ship. Deliver to coordinates Theta 4. Leave the pilot. Jax didn't bother to hide his reply. No. Noncompliance noted. Efficiency reduct --. He cut the thought off with a laugh he didn't own and didn't apologize for. You can lie about coordinates all day. You don't get to tell me who we keep. Veyra was watching his face. She didn't ask who he was arguing with. She knew. You work for a thing that can't tell the truth, she said, turning back to the console, fingers light. That means you're either brave or doomed. Both, Jax said. She nodded, as if that satisfied an equation. Then hear this. You didn't rescue me. You borrowed me. I'm not your asset. I'm the Wraith's pilot and her diplomat. If you try to trade me for a better name, I'll put your corpse out an airlock with ceremony. Rika grinned despite herself. Oryx rumbled approval. Whisper looked at the ceiling like he was asking it to remember this day. Thorn stood very still, hearing the word asset like an accusation he had stamped on his own face. Lumen tilted their head and listened to the ship fall into a slower, steadier hum. "Borrowed works," Jack said. "We'll take borrowed." Veyra stared at the emptiness where their hunters used to be and saw 100 doors the voice would never be allowed to name. "Good," she said, "because the first thing you need to borrow is a better home." Kira bristled, half offended and half aroused by the promise of work. "This wreck is your idea of home?" Veyra's hand stroked the console once. The ship purred a beat lower. "She's ugly because she tells the truth," she said. "All the pretty ships belong to people who never did." Kira opened her mouth, closed it. "Your radiator still pisses in your shoes." "And you're going to fix that," Veyra said. Not a question. A small surrender. The lights steadied. The Wraith's engines evened into something approximating grace. Out the forward glass, the disputed rim was a slate of stars without a flag. The kind of place where a ship could carve her own name if she had hands, and a pilot and a mechanic who had decided to forgive each other a little. Jax let his eyes rest there for a breath he didn't have to count, and then the math came back. "Whisper," he said. "What follows a crooked jump?" "Regret," Whisper said. "And a tracer they'll pretend they didn't see." "Can you make them regret the tracer?" Jax asked. Whisper's smile was small and hungry. "I can make the tracer regret us." "Oryx," Jax said. "If the ship shakes, you hold." "Stone holds," the Karok said. "Rika," Jax said. "Keep the gun warm without making it angry." "I'm charming," she said. "Thorn," Jax said. "If anyone on this ship is bleeding and doesn't know it, find the blood and put it back." Thorn exhaled. "Aye." "Lumen," Jax said. "Talk to her without making her love you." Lumen's laugh was a bell. "Too late." "Kira," Jax said, and felt the gear engage that had nothing to do with engines. "Make a list. Then make a second list. Then tear out the first one and tell me the second is what you always meant." Kira had already pulled a panel, already made a mental map that looked suspiciously like affection. "I'll need parts," she said, "and time. And for her pilot to stop touching things while I make her better than she remembers." Veyra's head turned. "We'll negotiate," she said. "We will," Kira said. They looked at each other like two mechanics arguing over the same engine from opposite sides of the car. Jax let it be. Some negotiations you didn't stand between unless you wanted to lose fingers. The voice had not left. It never would. It could not ask for the thing it wanted. Not directly. It could not tell the truth if the truth would be a blow. So it did what it had always done. It pointed at doors. A new set of coordinates folded into Jax's head with the careful handwriting of a man who never crossed out a line. Theta 4. Debrief. Deliver ship. Jax set the Wraith's course 10 degrees off those coordinates and told himself it was a rounding error. The lie made the truth easier to hold. Veyra pretended not to see the angle, or pretended to pretend. "If we're going to be a crew," she said, "you should learn how to drink something that doesn't taste like solvent. I have a bottle that survived 4 treaties and a war. I promised it to anyone who made the Wraith sing again." "She didn't sing," Kira said, nose wrinkling. "She cleared her throat." "Close enough," Veyra said. Rika snorted. Whisper smirked. Oryx's grin was a tectonic shift. Lumen looked pleased in a way Jax had never seen and could not name. Thorn tucked his guilt somewhere he could carry it without spilling for an hour. Jax watched his crew, 8 now if you counted the ship, and let the thought settle that he was building a family out of every rule he had broken. He let it settle and did not love it yet. Love made you slow. He could not afford slow. but he could afford this, a ship that wasn't stolen, a pilot whose mouth could get them out of wars or into them, an engineer who would pick a fight with entropy and win, a soldier who had chosen failure on purpose and was still here to choose again. "Welcome aboard," he said to Veyra Kael. "Don't make it a habit," she replied. The Wraith turned her nose to the dark and went on with the confidence of a liar who had decided to tell the truth whenever it would hurt the right people. Behind them, the cutter and the corvette compared notes and found a hole shaped like a ship they both already hated. Ahead of them, the coordinates glowed like a trap, written by a god who could not admit to murder. Between those two facts, a ship rattled toward becoming a home. Jax gripped the armrest until his knuckles ached and let himself smile once, small and mean. He could work with lies that had a shape. He could carve space from the polite grammar of warm words. He could choose the impossible and call it protocol. "Hold course," he said. Veyra did.